welcome to Prescott Community Church. We are so glad to have you with us here this morning. If you are new, then please comment new in the comment section down below, and then we can message you and just get to know you a little bit better. We have already posted our children's work to our Facebook this morning, so if your little ones want to do some colouring and some work along with the talk, then you can download that from there. This week we have had some amazing work from Dorcas from last week, and if you want any of the work to be featured for next week's live stream, then please send it to us by Tuesday at 12. We'll be hearing from Amelia this morning for our talk, but before then, here is our time of sung worship. Okay, good morning and welcome Prescott Community Church. It is so lovely to have you with us here this morning. Please get up and get moving and get ready for a time of worship. Woohoo!
God is moving, forever changing. gracious to you. Lord, turn his face toward you and give you peace. Lord, bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Lord, turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 Lord, bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Lord, turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 generations, and your family, and their children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and their children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and their children, and their children.
so many in the world that are hurting right now. Seeing so much violence and lack of justice. We're not seeing peace, God. We just pray that for every person who's hurting, every person who's been hurt, whether that's emotionally, physically, spiritually, that God, your blessing and your favor will be upon them for every generation. And God, when we think about the word amen and the fact that it means truly an agreement and that it is done, we know that God, you have already won the victory for all those who are hurting. We know that it is done when we bring your name into things, God. And I just pray that there will be justice, that there will be peace. And that we will see your blessing over everyone who needs it, God. And we can come together and we can say amen and we can be in agreement that that's what this world needs, God. Lord Jesus, will you just bless those who need it, bless those who are hurting. Let there be peace. Let your kingdom come, God. Amen.
Hello! Welcome back to Prescott Community Church on this fine Sunday morning. My name is Amelia and I'm going to be following on from Mark's talk last week about courage and overcoming fear in this very, very scary time for our world right now. So I really recommend you go back and watch that if you haven't seen it. But without further ado, let's get on with it. So I want to talk about what courage is and how we can change our influences and how that can help us to overcome fear. So courage, the definition of it is just the ability to do something that frightens you. It is not the absence of fear. It is not someone that is completely immune to fear. It's just knowing that things are scary and acting regardless. And I think, especially as Christians, that can be really, nice to know, because I'm sure I'm not the only one where every time you get scared, you're like, is this a crisis of faith? Am I a bad believer? I'm a heretic. But no, fear is our kind of natural defense mechanism. Fear helps us to stay safe and it helps us to protect ourselves. But we're not supposed to be ruled by fear. So faith actually, I'd say faith needs fear. Faith is us looking at the scary things and going, you know what, yeah, that is kind of terrifying, but I'm going to have my faith in God, not in my own understanding, and I'm going to march forward regardless of that. So that is that point. Another thing I want to talk about, which I found out this week, which I think is really, really interesting, is that the average person influences roughly 10,000 people over the course of their life. So if you're anything like me and you're typically quite quiet, that can be really mind-boggling to find out. How on earth could I influence 10,000 people? How could I influence 1,000 people? But if you think about, every time you meet a new person, maybe you serve a new customer at work, every time you smile at a stranger, that is going to influence their day a tiny little bit. Think of every conversation you've had with a friend, every bit of advice you've ever given. That advice might be passed on to another person. And over the course of your life, the more you do these things, the more you teach your children and cousins and friends. They're going to teach their children and their friends and their family. And that really adds up. Especially if you look at kind of the butterfly effect and that sort of thing. Everyone can have a massive impact on the world around us. So I'm going to look at a very interesting part of the Bible, I think. The first chapter of the book of Joshua. So over and over again through this first chapter, God is saying to Joshua, be strong and be courageous. In I think it's verse 9, be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I think what's important to remember is that at this point in time, Moses, you know, the let my people go kind of character, has just died. And he previously was a leader in Israel, and so now Israel is without a leader, and the Jews are looking for someone to take his place. And throughout this book, Joshua's really set up as like the new Moses. But before he's actually stepped into that position of leadership, God is continually saying to him, be strong, be courageous, don't worry, I am with you. And I think it's really cool that even before he stepped into this season, God is saying, I'm with you, don't worry. I'm with you, be courageous, be strong, make that choice. Like, he's kind of preparing him for it. But also I think it really points out that you don't need to be this big, strong leader who's, you know, going forth and slaying a dragon to have courage. It's just a choice that we all make to be courageous and to keep in mind that that thing that worries us is not going to consume us, and to put things into perspective regardless of who we are. So, yeah. Another thing that I want to point out is that in the book of Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 17, it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Now, in psychology and sociology, it's pretty well established that humans influence each other a huge amount without even realising it. You might have heard that we become like the 5 people we spend the most time with. But actually, I think it's really cool that humans have been aware of this for thousands of years. If you think about how old, especially the Old Testament is, I just think that's really, really cool. And there's a lot of wisdom in this book about how people interact with each other that I think we can draw upon. So, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. We are influenced by the people we are in contact with. Not necessarily physical contact, but in social contact with. And I think it's important to know that iron being sharpened is a gradual process. So it's the little interactions every single day will gradually shape us as people. But I also want to argue that if we change our influences, we can massively change ourselves as well. So what can we do to overcome fear using that logic? First of all, make the choice to commit. So Romans chapter 12 verse 2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. So in this verse, renewal is described as being a continuous thing. It's your mind is renewing more and more every day. That's kind of what I take from it. But I think as well, it's important to remember that we have to make that choice every day of not conforming to the pattern of this world and just not giving in to what we see all around us every day. That doesn't necessarily mean, you shave your head, you get a mohawk, you get a bunch of facial piercings and you become, a rebel archetype. It doesn't necessarily mean rebelling for the sake of rebellion. It just means you can look at the world and you can say, I don't want to give in to that. I don't like, the culture of clickbait and of grabbing people's attention for the sake of it, or gossip and tabloid culture and, reality TV and all of that. We don't have to give in to that. We don't have to conform to that if it doesn't make us happy. And I also want to point out Isaiah chapter 6 verse 8, which is just, here I am, send me. So acknowledge that you have a choice in this, but you making that choice is just the first step. It's a pretty easy first step, I would say. And next I want to say, analyse your influences. So what are you surrounded by and what have you surrounded yourself with? Not like pinning the blame and being like, it's your fault that you're worried about things. But just know that, iron sharpens iron, and you are being sharpened in very different ways by the different influences around you. So it could just be, have you followed a lot of pages on social media that only share gossip about celebrities? Or maybe you follow people that, you know, you look at them and you're like, oh, I wish I looked like that person, and it makes you feel quite insecure. One thing that I find can be quite handy is on Twitter and Instagram, and I think on Facebook as well, you can actually mute certain words. So maybe you're just sick of hearing about politics. You can mute the names of politicians so you won't see any posts that have those names in. On my Twitter feed, I have muted the words quarantine and pandemic and COVID, because obviously I'm going to read the news, but I don't need to just see nothing but posts about people getting sick all the time. It's, you know, obviously I'm going to want to keep up to date with what's going on in the world. Everyone else is probably going to want to keep up to date, but you can tailor that. So if you're only ever seeing very kind of doom and gloom sort of posts, you can tailor that influence. Next point is recognize who God is. So I am a Christian, as you can probably tell, given the fact that I'm delivering a sermon to a church. But in the verse, Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6, it says, "The Lord your God goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." That's pretty self-explanatory. God is with you in every season, no matter what, whether it is scary, whether it is easy for you to deal with, he's always there. He's always with you. And so next I want to say, what are you afraid of? Now, really get specific for this one. What is it that is freaking you out about this situation? And just keep asking yourself, you know, why am I scared of that? Why am I scared of this? Why does that worry me? Get specific. If you need to just sit and write down like a diagram and just keep writing arrows and going, well, I'm scared of this because of this, because of this, because of this, keep going until you get to the root of that, and then go back to the previous step and bring God into that. So say, for example, you're scared that you're going to let people down. Just go into Google and type in verses about, and then whatever it is that you want. So verses about anxiety, verses about financial struggle, verses about worry, verses about letting people down. Find out what the Bible says about that. Find out what God says about that, because God makes promises to his people over and over again in the Bible. And you can read them, and it's free, and you can read them in any language you want. Next, I want to say, put fear in its place, which sounds a little bit weird, but what that means is know what fear is. So like I said before, fear is a natural protective mechanism in the brain. Fear helps us to stay safe, but it is not meant to steer our life in whatever direction it wants, because that will just make us paranoid. So I want to bring up the verse. It's 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7, which is, "The Lord has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." A sound mind is not someone that doesn't understand fear. You know, we all know people that are too brave for their own good at times. Like, people can rush into things and don't think about consequences. And you wouldn't say that they're the most sound people, that, not like, haha, sound, but they're not the most sound of mind people that we know. Because not having any fear can make us kind of stupid in a way. But a sound mind is a mind that is not ruled by fear 24/7. It is a mind that can look at fear and say it is useful up until a point, and then moves on beyond that fear, regardless of that fear. And I also want to say that your mind is a malleable thing. So I think this verse points out that, you know, we have not been given a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and a spirit of love and a spirit of a sound mind. But those things are given to us as a gift, and all we have to do is make the choice to say, I don't want to do this my way, I want to do this God's way. And he gives us those things freely as a gift. We're not at the mercy of our thoughts. thoughts. We're not at the mercy of a bunch of synapses firing over and over again. You're a much more complex being than just that. And you can make choices to make your time on this earth a lot more peaceful. And finally, I want to mention a verse that Mark mentioned last week, which is Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, which says, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." So from this, I'm going to just say, know that there is a plan. Know that this is not all in vain. Know that when God starts something, he's going to finish it. And know that if things are scary, it's only for a limited time. It's only for a season. The fear will end, and you can keep these promises in mind to give us confidence in the end kind of goal to that. So yeah, that is me. That is my talk for this week. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your Sunday, and on to the band, I think. Goodbye.
Thank you, Amelia, for those empowering and encouraging words this morning. And remember, if your little one's been doing some work or colouring alongside this morning's talk and you want it featured on next week's live stream, then make sure to send us it by Tuesday at 12 p.m. Remember, you can still support our church community mission at the moment, whether that's by standing order, by text, or by the Gift app, which is GIVT in the App Store. Also, if you want to join us for a bit of community time after the service via our Zoom call, then message us and we will send you the link through. Remember also to keep an eye on the side at the start and the end of the service, just to see what we're up to during the week. Or you can check out our Facebook page. We usually post encouraging posts, prayers, and just little reminders of what we're getting up to during the week. And now for our final song.